That summer afternoon in Charlotte seemed ordinary to most people, but for Steph Curry, it was the day that would forever change his trajectory. It was 2010, and the 22-year-old point guard was far from the superstar we know today. With just one NBA season under his belt, Curry's slender frame and almost adolescent appearance made many question whether he truly belonged in the league. "I remember reading the analysts' assessments," recalls Curry, now with a serene smile that only time and achievements can provide. Too small, too fragile, unconventional shot, no athletic explosion. I heard it all. And the worst part is that part of me believed them. Curry was visiting his hometown that summer, trying to reorganize his thoughts after a promising rookie season, but one filled with injuries. The location was a private sports complex where he used to train when visiting family. The court should have been empty at that time, but upon entering, Curry realized he wasn't alone. Initially, I only saw the silhouette, but that profile, that way of moving across the court, you simply know. It was as if time had stopped, says Curry, still visibly impacted by the memory. Michael Jordan was there, alone, practicing shots at 47 years old, as if he were preparing for a Game 7 of the finals. Like any player who grew up in the 90s, Curry idolized Jordan. He had his posters on the walls, watched countless times the videos "Come Fly With Me" and "Airtime." Jordan wasn't just a childhood idol. He was the definition of excellence that Curry always used as a benchmark for his own work. I was about to turn around and leave so as not to disturb him when I heard his voice. "Hey, Davidson kid, aren't you going to say hello?" I was in shock. Michael Jordan knew who I was. What should have been just a respectful greeting turned into a conversation that lasted almost 2 hours. Between occasional shots, Jordan shared stories from his career, observations about the modern game, and, surprisingly, detailed analyses of Curry's own game. What impressed me most was how attentive he was, recalls Curry. He mentioned specific plays I had made during the season. He had really watched me, not just casually, but with the attention of someone who saw something in my game worth following. At the end of that afternoon, when they were about to say goodbye, Jordan did something unexpected that Curry had never publicly revealed until now. He gave me his personal phone number, says Curry, with a mixture of reverence and incredulity even years later. He told me, "The game is changing, and you have something special that can take this change forward. If you need anything, advice, or just to vent about the pressure, call me. Sometimes, the biggest battle is mental, not physical." That seemingly simple gesture represented something almost unimaginable for a young player struggling to establish himself in the league. Michael Jordan, notoriously selective and reserved, extending his hand to someone whom many considered too small, too fragile to have a lasting impact. "I've always been open about how Michael was my inspiration and reference," explains Curry. "What the public didn't know was the direct impact he had at critical moments in my career, offering advice behind the scenes when I needed it most." What began as a casual encounter ended up becoming a lasting connection. Not a formal or scheduled mentorship, but something more organic and powerful. A relationship of mutual respect between different generations of basketball, where carefully chosen words and timely gestures shaped a winning mindset. What many people don't understand about Michael is that, beyond being an extraordinary athlete, he has an incredible ability to say exactly what you need to hear at the right time, explains Curry. They weren't formal lessons or structured training. They were precise interventions at the most critical moments of my career. After that first meeting in Charlotte, communication between the two athletes didn't follow a regular schedule. Instead of programmed training sessions, occasional exchanges of messages occurred, calls at crucial moments, and seemingly casual encounters that always seemed to happen when Curry most needed guidance. In 2012, when I was struggling to come back from ankle injuries and many questioned whether my body could handle the NBA, I received a package with no sender in the locker room, remembers Curry. Inside was a pair of Air Jordan shoes with a handwritten note. Physical limitations are real, but it's the mental barriers that truly determine how far you'll go. Never allow the fear of getting hurt again to limit your game. MJ Poo. That seemingly simple gesture had a profound impact at a time when Curry's confidence was shaken. It wasn't a detailed training program or technical restructuring. It was the validation he needed from someone who had overcome his own physical challenges. I've always been open about how Jordan was my main reference, states Curry. What people didn't know is that this inspiration also came from small interactions that happened away from the public eye. At another decisive moment, after a particularly difficult series of defeats in 2013, Curry received an unexpected call. He didn't announce himself. He simply said, "I notice you still hesitate in the fourth quarter when the pressure increases. Hesitation is the child of fear, and fear is the enemy of greatness. You have the shot. Never doubt that." And hung up, says Curry, still visibly impacted by the memory. It was as if he was watching not just my games, but also my mind. The relationship between the two never took the form of a traditional mentorship. It was more organic, almost intuitive. Jordan seemed to have developed a sixth sense for identifying moments of doubt or transformation in Curry's career, intervening with surgical precision through carefully chosen gestures and words. During the development of my long-distance shot, which many analysts considered reckless at first, I received a text message after a game particularly criticized by the media, reveals Curry. It said simply, "They criticized my fade away. They criticized my shoes. They criticized my style. And now everyone copies." The game evolves through visionaries who have the courage to ignore critics. Keep shooting. Perhaps the most significant impact occurred after the painful defeat in the finals of 2016, when the Warriors lost a 3-1 lead to the Cavaliers. It was a moment of deep introspection and doubt for Curry. "I was at the lowest point of my career, questioning everything," he confesses. "That's when I received an invitation to dinner at a private restaurant in San Francisco. Jordan was there alone, waiting for me. We talked for hours, not just about basketball, but about the weight of expectations, about public failure, about resilience. During that conversation, Jordan shared stories rarely disclosed about his own moments of vulnerability and uncertainty. These weren't technical advice about shots or footwork. They were profound lessons about the mental and emotional aspect of being a superstar. He told me something that night that I carry with me to this day. The championships you haven't won yet weigh more than those you already have. Accept that weight as a privilege, not a burden. Few have the talent to carry such heavy expectations." The impact of these interventions was amplified by the fact that they came from someone Curry had idolized since childhood. It was his reference transformed into confidant, his poster on the wall turned advisor behind the scenes. "I always say in interviews that Michael Jordan was my greatest inspiration," reflects Curry. "What I hadn't told until now is how that inspiration was fueled by small moments of shared wisdom, precisely when I needed it most." When Steph Curry began transforming the game of basketball around 2013, the public saw only a player rewriting the rules of the sport. What nobody suspected was how small moments of guidance from Michael Jordan, his childhood idol and constant reference, had helped shape this revolution. It was during the 2012-2013 season that I really began to find my identity in the league, reveals Curry. Michael's words about confidence and authenticity echoed in my mind with every bold shot I attempted. It wasn't about copying his style. It was about embracing my own with the same conviction he had with his. Curry's arsenal of skills was developed through countless hours of training and personal improvement. But what many don't know is how certain phrases and gestures from Jordan at crucial moments helped unlock the confidence needed to revolutionize the game with shots from distances previously considered reckless. Before a particularly important game in 2014, I found a note in my locker, says Curry. It said simply, "Most players try to avoid mistakes. Great players create possibilities that others can't even imagine. There is no innovation without risk." There was no signature, but I knew exactly who it was from. In 2015, when Golden State won its first championship of the Curry era, he received a simple but powerful text. Message: "Welcome to the club. Now the real work begins." That victory was just the beginning. The revolutionary style of play led by Curry transformed not just the Warriors, but the entire NBA. What seemed crazy years before, teams built around the three-point shot, became the new standard in the league. I've always spoken openly in interviews about how Jordan was my ultimate inspiration, explains Curry. What the public didn't know is that this inspiration was fueled by small, behind-the-scenes interactions that gave me the validation necessary to follow my path, even when that meant challenging conventions. After that historic shot from nearly half-court against Oklahoma City in 2016, Curry checked his phone in the locker room to find a message. "Now you're playing a game they can't keep up with. That's how you change the sport forever." The impact of these words came not just from their content, but from their source. For a player who grew up idolizing Jordan, each interaction represented a powerful validation that he was on the right path, even when that path radically diverged from established standards. During my unanimous MVP campaign, I received a call after breaking the three-point record in a season, says Curry. It was Michael, and he said something that deeply marked me. "Records are consequences, not goals. Continue playing for joy and innovation. The rest comes naturally." The most fascinating aspect of this relationship wasn't a structured mentoring program, but the profound impact that carefully chosen words can have when they come from someone you've spent your entire life admiring. In the finals of 2016, after that painful series against Cleveland where we lost after leading 3-1, I received a message that changed my perspective, reveals Curry. It said, "I lost 3 finals before winning 6. The losses that hurt the most are the ones that teach best. I'm watching your story unfold, and it's far from over." The public silence about this connection wasn't the result of a formal pact of secrecy, but simply the mutual desire to maintain something genuine in a sports world often dominated by fabricated narratives and calculated public relations. Kevin Durant's arrival to the team brought new challenges, reflects Curry. That's when I received one of the most valuable pieces of advice. True greatness is knowing when to take a step back so the team can take 2 steps forward. The greatest winners are those willing to adapt their game for the greater good. While the Warriors were redefining modern basketball, Curry carried with him not just the technical lessons absorbed by tirelessly studying Jordan's videos during childhood, but also the wisdom shared through personal interactions that few knew about. "I've always publicly cited Michael as my reference and inspiration," explains Curry. What I didn't tell was how that inspiration was amplified by moments of real connection that helped me navigate the ups and downs of being a star in the NBA. It wasn't just about technique or strategy, reflects Curry, adjusting his posture as the memories return with clarity. It was about having someone who perfectly understood the weight of expectations and the loneliness that comes with redefining a sport. When Steph's three-point shots began expanding the limits of what was considered possible in the NBA, many critics questioned the sustainability of that style of play. It was at that critical moment that another message from Jordan arrived. He sent me a text that said, "They call luck what they can't explain. Keep giving them what they can't understand." It was as if he gave me permission to continue challenging what everyone considered to be the right way to play. During the Warriors' dynasty years, each achievement was accompanied by small gestures from Jordan that remained invisible to the public. A bottle of champagne. After the title of 2017, a rare watch commemorating broken records, and phone conversations in moments of doubt that helped form not just a player, but a revolution. The biggest lesson I learned from Michael wasn't about basketball, concludes Curry. It was about confidence in your own vision when everyone around you says it's impossible. He showed me that true pioneers don't ask permission to change the game. They simply change it. The press conference at Chase Center was packed that spring afternoon. Journalists and cameras crowded, waiting for what had been announced as an important personal statement from Steph Curry. When the Warriors' point guard finally appeared, his countenance carried an unusual seriousness. "For more than a decade," began Curry, his voice firm despite the visible emotion, "I've kept a story that I now feel needs to be shared. A story about how Michael Jordan secretly guided me in the most crucial moments of my career." The silence that followed was absolute. Pens stopped scribbling, cameras froze, and even the most experienced journalists seemed astonished by the unexpected revelation. With Michael's permission, I can finally tell the world how his behind-the-scenes guidance helped shape not just my career, but also the evolution of modern basketball. The initial silence was quickly replaced by a whirlwind of overlapping questions. Veteran journalists who thought they knew all aspects of Curry's career were suddenly faced with a revelation that rewrote narratives established years ago. "The decision to reveal everything wasn't taken lightly," explains Curry, reflecting on that moment. "Michael and I talked extensively about it. We felt it was the right time, not just for us, but for basketball as a whole." Jordan, who rarely makes public appearances in recent years, issued a statement confirming everything. "What Steph has accomplished transformed the game in ways that even I couldn't fully predict. It was an honor to be part of his journey, even if behind the scenes. Some gifts are better shared in private before being revealed to the world." The global reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Experts had to reconsider their analyses of the evolution of the modern game. The direct connection between two eras of basketball, which seemed to have a generational abyss, suddenly revealed itself as a carefully orchestrated transition. The most fascinating thing for me was seeing how people began to re-examine specific plays and moments of my career, says Curry. Suddenly, they could identify Michael's influence in movements that previously seemed purely original. It's as if everyone was watching a movie for the second time, noticing clues that had been there all along. Former teammates expressed surprise, but also retrospective understanding. Draymond Green was one of the first to speak up. "This explains a lot. There were moments in practice when Steph would say things about defensive, reading, or shooting angles that seemed beyond his time. Now it all makes sense." For Curry, the revelation brought unexpected relief. Carrying this secret for so long was more challenging than I imagined. There were moments when I wanted to give credit to Michael for specific insights, especially when critics questioned the legitimacy of the revolution we were leading. The story also cast new light on Jordan's character, often portrayed as fiercely competitive and even selfish. Here was a rarely seen facet: the selfless mentor, willing to work in the shadows to elevate the game he loved through another generation. I think what surprised people the most was the generosity of spirit, reflects Curry. The dominant narrative about Michael has always focused on his relentless competitiveness, but he demonstrated a much greater vision about his legacy, understanding that sometimes the greatest influence happens away from the spotlight. For young developing athletes, the revelation offered a powerful lesson about mentorship and humility. The impact was immediate. Training programs across the country began emphasizing intergenerational connections, with veterans being encouraged to guide new talents. I receive daily messages from young players asking how they can find similar mentors, says Curry. I tell them that true mentorship isn't about publicity or recognition. It's about the shared commitment to excellence and mutual respect. Sports historians began re-examining other transitions between eras, questioning what other connections may have existed without public knowledge. The revelation of Curry and Jordan opened possibilities for a richer and more nuanced understanding of how basketball evolved through generations. The most beautiful thing for me, concludes Curry, his voice choked with emotion, is that our story proves that the true legacy in sports isn't just about what you achieve, but about what you pass on. Michael could easily have kept his knowledge and experience to himself, preserving his place at the top. Instead, he chose to invest in a future he knew would belong to others. In a surprising turn of events, Jordan personally appeared at Curry's next game, sitting discreetly in the front row. When cameras captured the two briefly talking after the match, the moment symbolized the public transfer of a torch that had been passed privately years before. He told me just one thing that night, reveals Curry with a smile. Now it's your turn to find the next one. And that's what I intend to do. The story of Steph Curry and Michael Jordan transcended basketball, becoming a powerful testimony about legacy, mentoring, and the beauty of connections that go beyond personal glory. A revolution that everyone witnessed, finally revealed as a collaboration that nobody expected, redefining not just how the game is played, but how its knowledge is transmitted through time.